term wrench describes a wide range of tools. In general, they do the same type of work. That is, applying a turning movement to a threaded object. Basically, wrenches are divided into 6 groups. The open-end wrenches, which vary in design but are basically the same. Adjustable wrenches, which are less safe than the solid type. Box wrenches, because of their design, safer than open-end wrenches. Spanner wrenches, which are used on special fastening devices. Inverted socket type wrenches, which often are called Allen wrenches or keys. And socket wrenches, which are the safest and can be used on almost all fittings. Of these sockets, the 1/4 inch drive is for very light work. The 1/2 inch drive is most commonly used. The 3/4 inch drive for heavy work. And the 1 inch drive for extra heavy work. Let's see how these tools are used and misused. Dokes has forgotten that open-end wrenches are made for specific purposes and that they are hand tools. This type of open-end wrench should never be subjected to more pressure than can be exerted by hand and wrist alone. By this method, wrenches may be deformed or broken, bolts snapped, or threads stripped. Here's another reason why unreasonable strain should never be applied to wrenches. That should prove to you that makeshift attachments cause trouble. Hold it. Let's wipe the oil off that tool before you use it. Oily or greasy tools are dangerous tools. No, Dokes, this wrench is not made to be hit with a hammer. Wait a minute. See that there isn't an empty box, a pile of rope, or some other hazard that you will trip over if the wrench should slip and you lose your balance. Another thing, you are not placing the wrench properly. If a wrench is not seated properly or is too large for the nut, the jaws may be broken when pressure is applied, as all the strain is placed on the tips of the jaws, which are the weakest points in the wrench. Remember, always use the correct size wrench and seat it properly. Often, it is impossible to get a new bite unless you turn the wrench over. Try turning your wrench over, Dokes. Now, see how it fits. By turning the wrench over at the end of each pull, you get a different angle, which gives the greatest number of turns in the least space. The usual open-end wrench, as shown, has the jaws set at a 15-degree angle to the body of the wrench. That is the reason we have the angular advantage when we turn the wrench over. Now here, on an off-size nut, which a standard solid wrench will not fit, you should use an adjustable wrench. But the adjustable more abuse than any other type, because often it is misused where a solid type wrench should be used. All these things may happen when you push against the movable jaw of an adjustable wrench with the jaws extended to their limit. Get a larger wrench and do the job right. Hold it, Dokes. You're pushing against the movable jaw again. Turn the wrench over. That's better, but tighten it snugly against the nut. And Dokes, pull. Don't push. Of course, adjustable wrenches can be used in both directions when the work to be done is light. But it is well to remember that they do their best work, develop their greatest strength, and are safest to use when you pull on the same side of the wrench that carries the fixed jaw. One of the most useful of wrenches is the box wrench. Note the good solid grip. The length for leverage. And the small clearance required. Cocking a loose box wrench might work, but it probably will slip and damage the nut. Get the right size wrench. Note the small amount of space needed for the head of the wrench and how the head fits snugly and completely around the nut. Pull straight. This can't slip off. If possible, always use this type of wrench instead of the open end type. Hook spanner wrenches are designed to be used on fittings having slots which receive the hook on the end of the spanner. Dokes, obviously, you're using the wrong size. You'll ruin the slot and you may spoil a good tool. There, what did I tell you? You have ruined one of the slots. Get the correct size wrench. There is always the right method to do a job, and it is always the easier and safer way. This type of job requires the use of an inverted socket type or Allen wrench. A screwdriver is not the tool to use. Dokes, if you kept your toolbox in a neat, orderly fashion, you could find the tool you are looking for when you need it. Wrong size. But some mechanics are just too lazy to get the right size tool, so they try a makeshift. And here's the way they do it, ruining a perfectly good tool for the sake of immediate convenience. That's a thing that should never be done. If you haven't a wrench of the correct size, you may grind a piece of steel to fit, but you should not make a good tool into a poor one. Let's see how an experienced mechanic would tackle this job. His toolbox is well organized and neat. Aha, the right size wrench. On round finished surfaces, use an adjustable strap wrench. Notice that it leaves no damaging marks on the work. A pipe wrench also is used on pipe or round surfaces, but only where teeth marks are of no importance. On this fitting, notice the marks which the sharp gripping teeth leave. However, some mechanics try to use a pipe wrench on everything. The pipe wrench, in this instance, is the worst possible wrench to use and is certain to burr and mar the nut. An experienced mechanic should use the socket wrench wherever possible. Your socket isn't seated all the way down, and it's cocked at an angle. Be careful. I was just waiting for that to happen. Now get another socket. Seat it properly by placing the socket squarely and all the way down. Support the socket with your free hand. Sockets come in 6-point and 12-point sizes. For hexagon nuts, and 4-point and 8-point sizes. For square nuts, the more points a socket has, the less turning space is needed for use. A socket set has many advantages over ordinary wrenches. Among these advantages are the many ways of adapting sockets for different jobs. Here, for example, are just a few of the many sockets and socket attachments. Let's see how they are used. Here's a place where an end wrench cannot be used. The extension fitting is used to advantage in overcoming such obstructions. The hinge handle is the most commonly used and probably is the handiest for the usual job. The L handle is used on heavy work and will withstand more pressure than other type handles. The speeder handle is used for the purpose the name implies, where a large number of nuts of the same size are to be run on or removed. On certain jobs, such as on this cylinder head, it is necessary to tighten all the nuts to a uniform pressure. The torque handle affords a means of accurately reading the amount of pressure applied. The dial on the handle indicates the amount of turning action applied to the nut. The ratchet handle is used in tight places where there is little clearance for turning. Because of its design, you get a new bite with very little turning action. Ratchet handles should be serviced regularly to keep the mechanism working freely and to prevent unnecessary wear of the moving parts. Although it operates at slow speed, wear may be very rapid because of intense pressures on the small bearing surfaces. Keep it clean. Use a light oil, but no grease. The action of the universal joint can be compared to that of your wrist. When you have to reach a nut in a hard-to-get-at place, around or over an obstruction, the universal joint is the attachment to use. Whenever possible, break the nut loose with another type of wrench, and for speed, remove it with the aid of the universal joint. The square hole in the end of the socket is known as the drive, and is the hole into which various types of handles are fitted. The standard drives range from 1/4 of an inch to 1 inch in size. Each drive is to be had in sockets of many different sizes. The number which appears on the outside of the socket refers to the size of the nut which the socket will fit. And not to the size of the drive. Hold it, Dokes. Clean your tools and put them back where they belong. Tools used properly and cared for constantly are useful, faithful servants. Take care of your tools.